What would it take for this government to declare a national security emergency? Because yesterday, according to the Home Office report that's just been updated, yesterday 9 boats arrived with 609 people on board. After the last few days of 0 boats arriving because of all the bad weather and so on, but 9 boats arrived yesterday with over 609 people aboard, about whom we know nothing other than they are coming to the UK and ostensibly they obviously want to live here. Now, they will doubtless, according to statistics, 98% of them will file applications for asylum, many of which, may be genuine, so this is not to detract from those and are not inciting hatred, etc. But it's no secret that about all of these we know nothing, and we don't know where they came from, we don't know what their history is, we don't know what their motives are. Their motives could be nefarious, they could have long criminal histories, they could have affiliation to all sorts of organisations that we would rather not have people in this country with, and it's already an admission by the Home Office in its own documents in the press statement from the 29th of November that these small boat crossings, and I quote, undermine our border security. Now, they say threaten lives. Obviously, they mean the lives of those crossing in the boats. Their lives are at risk because some of them have sadly died. But it's potentially putting other people's lives in this country at risk as well. I don't think it's unfair to say that. Now, they already admit that this undermines our border security. And then they go on to say the people smuggling gangs do not care if the vulnerable people they exploit live or die as long as they pay. The government says, now this is where I will call the Home Office out on this point here, for the only possible real solution that I can see to immediately stop this from happening. The Home Office say here, we will stop at nothing to dismantle the business models and bring them to justice. Well, I respectfully suggest that we have to look past the difficulties in law to enable this to happen. You see, the most common question is, why don't we just take them back to France? Or why don't we just push them back to make them go back to France? Now, the simple reason is we have a duty to make sure they don't come to harm. And if we push them back, then we may be responsible for that harm. And since Brexit, we don't have the Dublin Agreement with France to take them back. And without France's explicit agreement, we can't just take them back. Or can we? Or is that where we are really being a bit soft? Now, we do have the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which very broadly speaking means we can intercept and even potentially board boats that enter our jurisdictional waters and demand to see immigration papers and all of this sort of stuff. But it doesn't explicitly allow us to take those boats back to France without France's agreement. However, I would respectfully suggest, if the government says that they will stop at nothing to dismantle the business model, then one of the ways of dismantling the business model is prevent it from actually working. So if, for example, we were to say to France, well, look, we are bringing these boats back. They came from France. We're bringing them back to France. Now, I'm not going to be entirely unfair because there are statistics that say that they have prevented a certain amount. They call them preventions. There are, for example, for the week ending the 8th of December, there are 16 events prevented. I don't know what those events are and where they were and what happened. But for that week ending, there were migrants prevented, there were events prevented, but also migrants arrived and boats arrived. So I'm not being entirely unfair here. There's obviously some kind of collaboration, and I may be being naive in that I don't know everything about it, but in my naive observations here, with these sort of statistics, genuine question to throw out here: how many boats and how many migrants arriving would it take for this government to declare a national security emergency? Obviously the previous government didn't do that, so they're not much better either, but it's not been declared. And if the Home Office, which it does, accepts that this is a threat to our border security, it undermines our border security, why not do something about it? Now, the only occasion I can really remember that there was a state of emergency somewhat declared was Operation Stack, and I think that was 2015, and that was obviously pre-Brexit, and then since Brexit, the Dublin Agreement fell away, so there's no direct agreement with France to return these migrants to France. But regardless of the legitimacy of the prospective claims that these migrants are going to make for asylum when they arrive here, you have to admit that this makes a bit of a mockery of the whole of the UK security, border security, when we have 9 boats arrive with 609 migrants in a single day. I go back to the question, a genuine question. How many boats would it take and how many migrants would it take until they declare a state of emergency? What if that was a 0 on the end of that? What if it was 90 boats with 6,000 migrants arriving? How many would it take to arrive before this government or any government declared a state of national emergency? Because I do genuinely fear, because we know nothing about these people that are arriving, and bearing in mind the discussion that we've had on immigration and everything that you have to go through to come to this country, and going through security and customs, and you're searched, your laptop is searched when you come through border security, through the airport, and you go through the scanning machines, etc. Everything is searched. But obviously when it comes to migrants arriving, this is not unfair to say that we know nothing about these people that are arriving. And I do have a genuine concern for everybody in the UK, the security of cities and places around the UK. Because as I say, we don't know anything about them, we don't know what their motives are. And so now I think we're getting on for some 35,000 arrivals in 2024 alone, with, as I mentioned before, 100,000 asylum applications a year, roughly half of those being granted. So I do think this is a time now for the government to consider that this is a national security emergency. I'm being deadly serious. I'm not saying any of this to raise tensions or incite hatred or anything of the sort. I think this is a genuine state of emergency. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I think it's time for this government to act. Thank you for watching.